Greetings again, my fellow comrades in humanity. I'm gonna differ away from what I've been doing, I'm starting to do, and I'm going to, I guess, have a rant, is the best way to call it, about a few things been happening in the world lately. First of all, I think I'll go with the coronavirus because, well, it's so scary, apparently. I don't know, when I first heard of this, I remembered it from a game, I was sure. I played it somewhere where it was a game, or something like that, in a book, or something. And I heard about its infection rates, and I was like, oh wow, that's more infectious than the common cold. Anybody who's played Plague Incorporated knows already that you can't contain that, and that's just ridiculous. That infection rate is going to do the world over, and there's not much you can do about it unless you want to close all borders and put your country on an economic standstill amongst the world stage. So yeah, it's super infectious. There's no doubt about that. No doubt in my mind. And the lethality rates, I don't have much doubt of either, because if you look at the reaction of the world to the coronavirus, you don't see much footage of actual people dying of this virus, and all the footage you do seems to be debunked pretty bloody quickly. The lethality rates look correct, and even in a best case scenario, if it did infect the world, we are still looking at a very, very large number of loss of life. But you want to look at it as if the bubonic plague was released today. If that happened, you would find that the bubonic plague would never have done the damage that it did. I don't think. It never would have gotten as far, especially with our hygiene and our antibiotics and our medicine and our knowledge of the genome. So yes, the coronavirus never had me worried. I never felt like we were being lied to or deceived by any country. I don't think China had any reason to be deceptive about what was going on. I mean, if they really wanted to, they didn't have to tell anyone, I guess. I guess they could have traced it back to Wuhan, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm not an investigator and I'm not a biologist. I just go by what I see. What I see is China reacting extremely quickly to a very infectious, low lethality virus, very quickly, very rational, and in a way that seemed very sympathetic to the people in general. And I look upon them in regards to the world stage at the moment, and they can't really live life without the rest of the world, but I could think the rest of the world could safely say that without them, life would be very bleak as well. So they have to at least look like they're doing something good. And I think they do more than just that. So yeah, the coronavirus never worried me, and I saw that it's been huge in the news and everybody went ape over it. But I feel like everybody's just ready to jump into these sorts of apocalyptic scenarios so easily, so readily. You look at climate change, and the numbers, they keep getting scarier and scarier, but it's not really the outcome I see of it. If it is true, and it does cause us the harm that we think it's going to do, I don't think it's going to be as quick as what everybody's predicting. I think it's going to be long. I think it's going to be drawn out. I think it's going to be very miserable. And I don't think we will be extinct by the end of it. I think human beings are too smart that. We've survived a couple of other calamities that this world has produced, and we weren't as smart then as we are now. We're much, much smarter. As for what we're doing about it, which I guess leads me to my next point, which is being an Aussie, the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Scott Morrison. I'm not much into politics. I don't like following them. I feel like they're charlatans. I feel like they're at the point of charlatans that we actually know that they're liars now. We know they're lying to us. And we just try to pick between the best two lies. But something Scott Morrison did that I think really won't sit well with the Australian public is, if you look into the Australian politics and all of our prime ministers of the past, they've all had very similar reactions to crisis in Australia, which is one of great understanding, great compassion, and just involvement. Sorry, my daughter needed her dog to be repositioned, apparently. It was lying down and it needed to sit up at 4 a.m. in the morning. But yes, back to my point, Mr. Scott Morrison. The whole world saw his reaction to an Australia in crisis, and it was enough for the rest of the world to see that they overpoured, and I mean it was almost awe-inspiring to see how much the world cared about Australia, more than its own Prime Minister did. Much more. And I know Scott Morrison probably did donate. I don't doubt it. I do think he may have some involvement in helping. But I feel like Australians expect a lot more from their Prime Minister, especially in times of crisis. It's just something that I feel Australians hold as one of our most dearest sort of attributes, which is, if we see a brother in trouble, we help him. We don't stand and watch. We don't walk away. We don't have indifference to him. Australia's always been that country of, she'll be right, mate, as you pick your mate up from the ground. And Scott Morrison, I feel, has shown just how un-Australian he is in his simple lack of caring. Just absolute lack of caring. To talk about the politics I've heard of him, it seems that he's more interested in money than anything else. Seems to be a common factor with a lot of our prime ministers here in Australia. But that's really all the opinion I can give on him. I don't really have one other opinion or another of him. I think he's just another person. He's fallible. He makes mistakes. But he should be held accountable for those mistakes. I feel that in Australia, our politics have turned less into a democracy and more of a pseudo don't want to say fascism, but I want to say when you have two parties that are supposed to be different and they're arguing the same point, but I can do it better, which isn't even really the arguments they give. They're more of their arguments. Look how much worse than him he is to me. You really have to worry about the state of the politics and the state of the country and where we're headed. So yeah, that's how I feel on that subject. I guess this is a political subject as well, but it's another Australian sort of pseudo psyche mentality that the Centrelink bum is the problem for all of our economic problems, or at least most of them. And I disagree entirely. There's much proof right in front of your face of this. Think to yourself for a second when you see an ad on TV, and this ad is an ad for a company that sells employees. Just think about that for a second. Like, we've had ads on television for job search providers a few times now. So it's now a competing market on who can serve out the best worker. It really says something about how much work there is for the lower class, those who haven't had a chance to acquire skill or anything like that, or like me, have wasted all their talents. If I had any. But yes, and you add that to the padding of the unemployment rate. They like to claim, oh yeah, it's 4%, 3%. It's very low. It's very low. But when you're counting jobs that include 1 hour a week, and that's an employed person, and that's part of your figure, that kind of throws out the figure of it, doesn't it? Like, from what I've been told by someone who I consider a very reputable source and such things, it's more like 4% unemployed, yes, but 18% underemployed, meaning they don't earn enough money to even qualify as a full job. Like, say you work your full days, your 4 weeks worth, and you get as much as a Centrelink bum. You've worked. In Australia's eyes, like, technically you're better, but you're not even getting it as much as they do. And you have more bills. And you have more expenses. Remember, this wasn't put onto you from the Centrelink bum. We didn't want this. This is put onto you from the government. It is as a way of padding this number. That's why the workers' rights sort of, they don't seem like they diminish, but they do in a way. Very slight ways, ways where they can cheat the numbers. And I've heard this has been done for padding of the budget by taking out money for schooling and stuff like that. I don't know how much to believe of that. I like to take everything I hear as a grain of salt, because my favorite saying, words are cheap. So cheap they're free. How easy is it for me to just sit here and rant this crap to you right now? And I look at all this, and I'm a father, So I'm really scared for my daughter. And I feel that I have to make sure she doesn't make the same mistakes I did, of course. Pay attention to schooling. Crap, that's all I really needed to have done, and I would have done much better with my life. Yeah. But the problem with that is I don't even see education as a tool to get into the big guns, to own a house in Australia, to live the Australian dream, so to speak. And this isn't because I don't think she's smart enough or anything like that. I hold the same probably loving belief for every father that she'd get nothing but A's. But what scares me is the prospect that Australia isn't living up to the agreement it made in the Geneva Convention, that people of any social class should have the opportunity to climb the social ladder. I don't think that's possible here anymore. I don't think you can go from poverty to middle class. I think if you do, you're very, very lucky, or you worked very, very hard. I still see the recognition of hard work in Australia has always been emphasised. It can never be emphasised enough. Hard work is exactly what it is. That's why I've started these vlogs. I wanted to work at something. I was passionate about. And religion is something I'm very passionate about. Not decided on which way that is yet. Could be one way or the other. But show me bloody damn good evidence though. I'm not seeing it yet. Another thing I'd like to point out is something I've personally noticed. I feel like I've met a lot of people. We never talk to them. I don't know if this is because of my class, being that of the lower poverty, but I found that the majority of people I met had the same mentality. And that mentality was that I'm smart. I know I'm smart. And that everybody else isn't as smart as me. And that I somehow know more in some form or manner. And that makes me superior in some way. I don't hold this belief myself, mind you. I think I'm quite dull, actually. I don't have much self-worth at all, especially when it comes to things like what I'm worth to this world. You can see I probably fight very hard with depression in this. But yes, it's a common sort of denominator that I know more than the person next to me. And they're living their life wrong, very easily and readily pointing out the faults of others, and very rarely looking back at ourselves and maybe discovering that there might be an issue there. Introspection, I think it's called. The ability to look into oneself and criticize their own faults. You should always do that first and foremost. You should criticize yourself to the maximum degree you can. Because if you can prove yourself wrong, then anybody can prove you wrong. There's another thing. Being proven wrong isn't a bad thing. Never take being wrong as bad. Never consider it a blessing. Consider it a gift of learning, of understanding that your mind believed something so wholeheartedly it was true that it wasn't. Now you can correct that mistake. That's why I'm open to comments and criticism if it ever comes. If I don't get too inundated, I plan to respond to every comment. That's the plan. I feel that with this information and technology age, there's something else that's sort of arisen out of it, where we have all these friends on Facebook that we don't talk to any day. We have all these people we know, we've met, and we know we had good conversations with them, and we know that we liked them, and we know that we got along with them and wanted to spend more time with them. And then you leave these people's presence, and you're at home, and you got your Facebook. And you'll sit there and you wonder, oh, why hasn't this person messaged me? Why hasn't this person messaged me? And I used to do this myself. It was like, well, why do my friends care if they don't message me? And then I thought, wait a second. How many times out of the blue have I ever just messaged someone to see how they were going? Just to ask, just to know. And at the time I couldn't think of any. And it's something I present to everybody, and I think it's something that everybody forgets, that yeah, they may not be contacting you, but have you spoken to them lately? We all have lives, we're all doing stuff. In fact, it seems we've gotten busier with making our lives easier. So I think it's important to remember that if you're feeling that way about a person, send a hey. See if they respond. You'll probably get a hey back. And they'll probably be surprised that you contacted them, the same way you would have been surprised that they contacted you. That was just something I noticed. And of course, like, generalization, not everybody's going to fall under these pretexts. So these are just some people. Which brings me to the next one, which is feminism. This new age feminism. I'll go back to I'll do this by going back to first wave feminism and think about what they thought about and what they fought for. They fought for the rights to vote. They fought for the rights to vote. They fought for the rights to... I'm not 100% sure. To have jobs, opportunities that other men had. Just basically to have voices that were heard. Second wave feminism, I'm not 100% sure about that one. I'd have to look it up. But I'm pretty sure it had some pretty valid terms to it too. But now we see this third and fourth wave feminism where it's recompensation, or males think this way. You get a term called mansplaining, which I think means something else now. We get told that looking at a woman in a sexual way is rape. Even if you weren't looking at her like that and she just thought you were. The chivalry becoming a form of derogatory attack. Like you've offended them because you tried to help them. And what I feel is that these people that are doing this are very much wrong. Very, very much wrong. Because the first wave feminists and second wave feminists, but the two, I've done my research on that one, were fighting for equal rights. They wanted the right to equal say in what happened in their lives. Fourth wave feminism, from what I've seen and what I understand, is more about balancing the rights in a way where females now have more for a certain period of time to make up for the time that we took from them. Now this assumes that women have never had a time in the spotlight at all, ever. And that's just not true. The first name that always comes to my mind when I think of this is Cleopatra. Here's a woman who ruled as pharaoh, a woman pharaoh, went to many countries, still remained pharaoh, led people, influenced people, has a name that is still remembered very well to this day. That's just one. You want another one? Queen Elizabeth. Another woman who stood at the brink when her husband, I think it was, died, and her heritage to the throne was threatened because she was a female, stood her ground and said, no, I'm queen, and you will deal with it. And I heard she was a harsh queen. She ruled very harshly. She was a widow. There's two. Shall I name some more? Let's go for another one. Why not? I'm ranting. Joan of Arc. She fought in wars. She fought for her country. She really did fight. She was killed and brutally murdered, and she got the raw end of the stick at the end, but she was allowed to have the voice of God for a while, which was unheard of for a woman, I think, especially in the terms of war. I don't think that's ever really been done. So she was a bit of an oddity. No more come to mind at the moment, but I'm sure you could find some if you actually looked for them. I bet there's a fair few powerful women out there who were recognized in an age when women were oppressed. And now I've lost my thought. Good job. I just remembered my thought. If fourth wave with feminisms really want to prove how much they care for women, I issue a challenge. Go to the places where women are still being oppressed in this world, very harshly. Wars against them are very harsh. And go fight next to the women with guns there. I've seen this documentary, and there's a fighting woman army fighting for their rights of education. And I believe the rights of their reproductive organs. Send them there. Make them actually fight for women's rights. And see how many of them will stick it out. See how far their conviction follows them to this man is so oppressive. And let them meet the true oppressive man that I don't think they know of. Which brings me, I guess, to my next subject, which is political correctness. Now, political correctness has a place. I see its place. But more than that, and I think a lot of people around the world can agree, is that this premise has been used way, way too much. Way too hard. I want to quote Morgan Freeman here because it's one of the smartest lines I've ever heard him say. And it was about racism while he was being interviewed. He didn't like the question at all. And I'll put it as best as I can. I don't know if I'm going to be able to quote him word for word, but I'll put it as best as I can. Racism is only still alive because we talk about it. We give it a voice. We give it a reason. If I stop calling you a black man and you stop calling me a white man, then we're both just men. I think this stands for all PC culture. Political correctness has a very, very minute place in our world. I don't think it's very useful. I don't think it serves a very valuable purpose. I don't feel like sparing the feelings of others holds weight over being able to rationalize this dark world we live in. Dark and brutal. And trying to protect ourselves from it is only going to leave us weaker too when it comes for us. That's why if you coddle your child and you never let it scrape its knee, when it finally does scrape its knees, it's going to be the worst thing in the world for it. You can't blame the child for this. It's never experienced a scraped knee before. It's going to hurt. Feel like it hurts immensely, especially if it's the first time they've ever felt pain. You get a kid at the same age who's scraped their knee 500 times. Their brain registers the same amount of pain. But having dealt with this pain so many times, you get your mind over matter sort of power, and now your child is screaming. And this goes really, really far into your life. This I hurt myself, now everybody must care sort of mentality. When we know that the best course of action when we fail is to get back up on the horse. And that's what we should teach our children, is that it's not the failure, it's what you do afterwards that counts. It's where you take it, what you learn from it. Now I'm not saying like let your kids play with knives, that's just stupid. But we've gone from a world where I remember I could go down in the street with a bunch of my friends and we could kick a football around. There wasn't any parents around. And we could just be trusted to come home because, nobody was going to steal us. Nobody was going to try and kill us. It may have happened a few very minority amount of times to some very unlucky children. But we were given, independence, in a way. We were given the ability to govern ourselves. And now, I think it's even illegal to just let your child out in the streets by itself. You have to coddle your child that much that you have to be with it 24/7 once it leaves the house. Someone could steal it and sell it on the black market, or rape it, or whatever you want. Kids always get me, I'm sorry. Anything to do with them and those sorts of things, they get to me. That's what I mean. I say that from that feeling that I wish my daughter could go out and play football with the other kids like I did. She's not going to get to. She's not going to get that social interaction. No, she'll probably experience it the same way we've started experiencing it. Through screens. Through digital format. The way I'm talking to you now. I don't know if there's anything else on my mind that I wish to rant about. I think we've covered it all. I just want the world to stop hating itself. I want the world to stop being so ridiculously obsessed with itself. We know we don't mind it that much. Why do we act like we do? I'd like for people to stop not planning for the future. Going for the small gains rather than the long gains. I want people to realize that we have to leave this world for other people. No matter how much we think it's going to end. It's not. It never does. The rapture is supposed to come so many times now, I can't even count how many times we've been told the rapture is coming by some authority figure or another. It never does. And when the date goes by and nobody says anything to them, they get away with it. And don't kid yourself, they cause real harm. When you cause someone to not prepare for the morrow, you are causing them harm. I guess I did have more to rant about. I don't want to say specifically where this originates from, because I don't think I have to. I think it goes without saying that there's only one person who thinks that the world ending would be a good thing. And that's someone who believes they're going to be saved afterwards. That there is an afterwards. That none of this matters. And I really think that the world needs to stop thinking that. I really think that's why China is now one of the world powers that rivals America, is because they don't think that. They plan for tomorrow. They build hospitals in 7 days. They do it because they can and because they know they can. And they know that tomorrow they will be better off for it. So yes, this has been a very long video, a very long rant. I'm going to stop myself now before I find something else to rant about. Same as always, goodwill to all. Live happy, healthy lives. Be good to your family. Most of all, stay safe.